What's up? Evening Owl, soaring in. This month is celebrating Native American Heritage Month, and since I'm mixed Cherokee, I'm celebrating by talking about Indigenous values and issues people love to ignore. With the world going to shit, as of today, the Rotten Orange was elected to be president. Climate change, giant dumpster islands, microplastics in our blood, lack of reliable transportation without a car, having to pay to just exist. How did we get here? Is it our fault it got like this? No. Don't blame yourselves, blame colonialism, which uses capitalism as a tool to control the general populace, to pit us against each other instead of the people who should be blamed. But you already know that, so let's talk about people who believe we deserve the right to eat and exist. Indigenous people, or Native people, not Indians. We have never been, nor ever will be from India. Disclaimer, I do not speak for all Native people. I am just a white passing Native who has grown up surrounded by ignorant people. This video will be heavily biased. Before colonizers took over the land and polluted its shit, there wasn't really a Native concept of land ownership. We did, and some still do, believe that the earth is its own being that thinks and feels, so it was deemed immoral to claim ownership of it. But what about agriculture? Didn't families own farms? Well, yeah, these farms helped to feed the community. While they owned the crops, they didn't lay claim to the land itself. Colonizers had different ideals, and they wanted the rich lands of North America and took it by any means possible, including genocide and slavery. Wow, America has changed so much. Less about the current political climate, more on that later. Thanks, Owl. Right now, I'm talking about indigenous agricultural techniques. The way modern farmers now put chemicals into the earth to grow better crops, creating polluted runoff, is so much more advanced, right? Oh, and especially the cramped spaces for livestock where they're forever surrounded in their own shit, creating hosts for diseases and parasites. That's definitely humane, correct? If only there were ways before for animals to live naturally and promote healthy soil to continue growth for generations to come. There is! And it was developed over thousands of years and passed down through generations? Wild. Here are some of those techniques. Fire cropping, one a lot of us has heard about and still used today in a lot of ways. It legalizes arson in very specific circumstances. Fire cropping is essentially burning an area to rejuvenate the soil. As Shelns puts it, burns carried out by the Karuk and Yurok tribes played a significant role in maintaining forest structure and biodiversity. Fire can be both destructive and healing in the right conditions. Only you can start forest fires. For legal reasons, do not try amateur fire cropping. Agroforestry. No, it's not punching the trees like in Minecraft. Paraphrased from Rossier and Lake's work, pruning, tillage, sowing, burning, and other actions are taken to prepare trees and forest floor for the upcoming months. These practices are passed down from family member to family member. It's like hedge cutting, but for spiritual and practical reasons instead of fear from the HOA. This is similar to, but also different from fire cropping, since there is management in the growth of the trees as well as burning. Next, polycultures are another indigenous technique. With help from Heim, we can understand that using polycultures is planting crops similar to how they would appear in nature. That way, it can promote the best growth. By imitating natural biodiversity, the plants can benefit each other in different ways. Next, in the same vine as polycultures, there's intercropping, specifically the Three Sisters. The Three Sisters were grown together: squash, maize, and beans. I'm not sorry. This practice of growing crops is well known because of the Iroquois, Navajo, Seneca, Cherokee, and many more. These crops just love to coexist with each other. Paraphrasing from Hill's explanation, the beans add nitrates to the soil, fertilizing it for the squash and corn. The beans are able to grow up the corn stalks, and the squash leaves gives them all cover from weeds. And finally, water management was also a technique used. One indigenous way of water management was to create mounds of soil to drain excess water in humid climates. Heim states, the Ho'okahoe tribe in Arizona dug and maintained canals as an irrigation system to facilitate farming in a relatively arid climate. So, why am I explaining these techniques? To show people that our history is not only still around, but it's here to stay. In my high school, I was taught about a few of the techniques that were given to the colonizers to help them through the winter. There was one very good teacher I had who spent 2 weeks on the subject of Indigenous people. They actively went into the cruel history that happened to the native people of North America. But not everyone in that school had that teacher. But I wasn't given a lot of information about the land and how it was taken care of before then. What do I take from this? American history is full of itself and the achievements it's overcome. It spends so much time cherry-picking what history and so-called heroes to highlight. And while the Trail of Tears is always mentioned, it's seen as a tragedy from oh so long ago. It doesn't mention the modern issues still present in reservations. It mentions assimilation as a passing thought, if at all. It refuses to talk about the hundreds of children in unmarked graves in boarding schools. While it boasts about the death of 90% of the native population in America, it refuses to acknowledge the death of culture. It negates the active hand of the American government in hunting and wasting one of their main food sources, buffalo. There is ignorance beaten into us in school. People are infuriatingly stubborn when they are told the fact that minorities do in fact have it harder than their white and white-passing counterparts. That's my experience growing up in the South. I've grown up hearing the ignorance and desensitization to the cruelty of colonizers, to everyday people and their struggles. The nicer word, colonialism, is often used to remove its negative connotation. These word choices, to me, highlight how people think. That if they pretend history doesn't affect the current political climate, they can live in blissful ignorance. The fact is, I learned more from living and existing in 2020 than from actively learning in school for 13 years. That is fucking horrendous. Especially in the way that white teachers talked about history as if it was over and so long ago, just because the pictures weren't in color. This isn't only targeted towards people of color, but also people in the alphabet mafia. I mean, the LGBTQIA community, which if you couldn't tell, I'm also a part of. While it is a scary time, for me it's less so. I am white passing and cis female presenting, even though I don't use those pronouns. That isn't the case for everyone. It's terrifying to think of what's to come. The chaos, and not the good kind, that will only be perpetuated by hate and ignorance. This ignorance allowed a man who is adamant on making an enemy of minorities president for another term. I don't think I need to elaborate more on the impending doom a lot of us are feeling. We survived COVID with this monster, we'll survive it again. It feels hopeless, but when we lose hope, we lose everything. Conclusion. Indigenous people had been taking care of America before that was even its name. Colonizers have tried and still try to erase us, but we are powerful. We will not be forgotten for anyone's comfort. The techniques various tribes have used is its own beautiful language, a connection to each other, the land, and our ancestors. It's the ignorance that was taught to me that kept me blind and timid for so long. There was discomfort that built over the years, and anger at the history being taught being shoved down because it was deemed to be the past. But if we refuse to talk about the mistreatment of others, we are willingly enforcing it. Because it's not just in the past, it's happening now. A copy of this script with cited works will be available in a document down below. Said document will have all the links I was able to click. If you decide to read even one of the works mentioned, I would recommend Native Agriculture Never Went Away, Now It's on the Rise by Anna McNulty. Thank you for watching this video to the end. Thanks for stopping by. You feathers help me fly.